Okay. Happy Halloween.
Is this supposed to be a bat? Happy Halloween.
No, that's a butterfly.
It's a butterfly.
It's supposed to be a bat for Halloween.
Okay, well, tell them bye.
Wait.
She's a witch. Tell her bye.
Bye.
Alright. I hope that everyone is having a great Halloween. My family has been at family camp. It's the first time for us to go this year, and we missed the ending of it today. So it was cold. It was rainy. We were outside. We had a blast. But as a result, I have no voice. So we're going to try to get through this devotional. If my voice goes out, then when it stops, it stops. And I apologize for that. But we don't have a very long one. And with it being Halloween, I wanted to do something kind of fall. I tried to look for a Halloween one, and I didn't like the Halloween devotionals that I found. But I found one from Julia Betancourt, and she's one of my favorites. And it's called Apple Pie a la Mode. So we're talking about being in the fall. She's talking about apple pie is my favorite. So maybe this is why I kind of like this devotional. But her whole devotional centers around Philippians 4:11, which says, "For I have learned in whatsoever state I am, therewith to be content." So we're going to talk about in this devotional where we are in our lives right now and how we need to be content with whatever is going on. Whether it's a trial, whether it's a joyful time, whether it's a stressful time, whether we're in the valley or on the mountain, we have to be content. And we picked this because we're in the season of fall. The leaves are falling. You see today all the pumpkins that are out. If you have trick-or-treaters, you'll see them. Sometimes they carry orange little pumpkins or baskets. Sometimes it's pillowcases. Sometimes it's just Walmart sacks. But you see the fall, when you go to the stores, you saw the big bins of pumpkins, and you see the cozy sweaters start to come out. And definitely this morning, we needed a sweater. And what about, which now they're at the end of it, but the big crops of apples. Okay, the beginning of fall is when we see all the apple trees in bloom. We take field trips if you're in school to the apple farms. We go and pick our apples, and we start making applesauce, or we start making our own caramel apples, or we make whatever apple pies. We make whatever we want out of these apples. We love apples in so many ways. And I guess since we can do so many different things with apples, like we mentioned, the applesauce, the caramel apples, or just a regular apple, it depends what mood we're in, right? If we're in the mood for applesauce, we get some applesauce. If we're in the mood for a caramel apple, we get a caramel apple. If we want just an apple, or my kids like apple and peanut butter, they'll sit down, and you just have to be in the mood. And sometimes we just like the fruit straight from the tree, don't we? Crunchy and sweet. Other times we want to cook them to perfection. Sometimes we might even add a little brown sugar to them, or cinnamon, or peanut butter, or I don't know what else you put on apples, because I'm not a big apple person unless it's in an apple pie. So I guess I am the sugar and the cinnamon girl. But whatever mood you're in depends on what type of apple you want. And I want us to think about us as apples. And I want to look at some different things apples are used for to make, and see which ones we most relate to in our Christian life. First, we're going to start with apple cider. Well blended and full of spices. Is our life like that? Are we putting in ingredients in our daily schedule that build up our faith? Are we getting deep into the Word and letting it seep right into us? Are we keeping prayer in our daily routine to improve our taste of life? Are we blended and full of spices? Are we apple cider? Next is apple crisp. Apples cooked with a great topping of cinnamon, sugar, oatmeal, and butter till it's all crusted on top. What are we crusted with? Have we allowed the things and pleasures of the world to worm their way in and bake on top of our life? Or have we allowed the Lord to bring out the fruits in us and encrust us with a Christ-like attitude, a Christ-like life? What does our apple crisp look like? What is our crust? What about apple slices? They're sliced up and ready to go. What do we go through life slicing? Are we dicing up people with our words? Are we cutting into people by our attitude? The only time we should be slicing our life is when we are rightly dividing the word of truth. And that is 2 Timothy 2:15. And it says, do your best to present yourself to God as one approved, a worker who has no need to be ashamed, rightly handling the word of truth. How are our apple slices? Are we hurtful? Do we chop everybody down? How is our attitude? Apple juice. We all know that any fruit juice is made by using pressure against the fruit so that the juices inside flow outward. How about us? Are we letting the pressure and trials of life bring out the best in us? Are we learning from all that pressure? What is flowing out from our life? We're that apple. We're being squeezed. What's coming out? What's coming out of our mouth? What's coming out of our heart? What's coming out of our mind? Know if they say what goes in comes out. What's in our mind? What's coming out? Candy apples. Candy apples are just like they sound. Candied and sweet. They are covered with a coating of sugar. Some candy apples are covered with chocolate or caramel and topped with nuts, sprinkles, or variety of goodies. Making them can get pretty creative. How creative are you at being sweet? What are you dipping yourself into? You know, the apple we said was just dipped into. Nuts, now they got them with nuts, gummy bears, M&Ms, caramel, chocolate. I mean, the list goes on and on. Basically, whatever will stick to the stickiness on your apple, whatever you decide to dip it in, whether it be chocolate or caramel or whatever, frosting, whatever you put it on. What's sticking to that? What are we dipping ourselves into? Are we dipping it into the Word of God? Are we dipping into our faith? We can't be coating ourselves with worldliness. It hardens us with sin. When we are walking and talking with our Lord on a regular basis, we're going to be wrapped up. We're going to be that caramel. We're going to be that chocolate. We're going to be that frosting of sweetness that reflects the love of Christ. What does our candy apple look like? Are we reflecting the love of Christ? How we choose to serve up life each day is determined by what kind of mode we are in. Mode just means how we do something, how we express something, or even how we experience something. Remember it this way. Whatever our lives are topped off with will determine our mode. We are going to all experience life differently. And if our lives are topped off with walking with the Lord, our outlook will be different. And our actions will be different. It boils down to our relationship with Christ. We want that sweet fellowship with Him to be the topping on our life because that will ensure that we are offering and serving up His love to the Lord. A good relationship with the Lord will help us get into those faith modes, the prayer modes, and those serving the Lord modes. I know those are 3 modes I've got to work on. My family's got to work on. And it will help with my relationship with the Lord and with friends and with everybody. Our faith mode, our prayer mode, and serving mode. Have you noticed that our modes can change as the seasons do? When fall hits, that means a weather change. It gets a little colder. Colder weather doesn't always sit so well with all of us. When fall comes, that also means that holiday get-togethers aren't far off. And we all know what that means. Family time. Getting together as a family is great, but it can be full of anxiety. Fall also reminds us that Christmas isn't too far away, and that means maybe financial maneuvering to fit in all those Christmas gifts into our budget. It means baking, which is a joy to some and a burden to some others. Baking, you can bake up large cookies, your traditional favorites. To a big meal. It's a lot of work. It takes a lot out of us to show all of that holiday hospitality. We have to determine how we're going to meet fall or whatever season is coming. We must have our hearts in tune with Christ in order to deal with all the changes that come to us. It is hard to cope if we are not at peace with our Maker and walking hand in hand with the Lord. How are we experiencing fall? How are we experiencing this change? Like we talked about, the colder mornings. It's been okay in the afternoons, but the colder mornings, the crisp, cool air, our attitudes. How are we experiencing that? Are we meeting our different seasons with modes of grumpiness, anger, annoyance, depression, aggravation, frustration, or other things that don't enhance our walk with Christ? Those things don't make very good ingredients for our apples. They don't. We need those beneficial ingredients that Paul mentions in Philippians 4:8, which says, "Finally, brethren, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report, if there be any virtue and if there be any praise, think on these things." Paul is determined that whatever fall came, or whenever fall came, whatever season came, whatever season he was going to be content. Are we content? Are we content with what's going on in our lives? Not saying do we like it. There's some of us going through some really hard times right now. Terrible times. Not saying we got to like the state that we're in. But are we content? Are we still leaning on the Lord? Are we still being the Christian we need to be? Philippians 4:11 says, "Not that I speak in respect of want, for I have learned, in whatsoever state I am, therewith to be content." Our seasons aren't always going to be simple and trouble-free, but we can learn to be okay with that. We need to be okay with what is happening around us when we rely on the Lord to give us our strength. Christ is always there to comfort and guide us. We have to allow him to carry us along. Philippians 4:13, we all know this verse. "I can do all things through Christ which strengthens me." I don't see anywhere where Paul says it was easy. But he was writing these things to the church at Philippi because he wanted the best for them. He wanted them to bear some good fruit. He wanted them to be good apples. He wanted them to be serving up good dishes. Philippians 4:17 says, "Not because I desire a gift, but I desire fruit that may abound to your account." I'm sure we all have room to improve when it comes to facing our seasons in better modes. We have to experience life with the love of Christ. We should have the desire to be the sweetest apple in the bunch. So what kind of mode are you greeting this fall season with? Which we're already in the fall. I get that. I should have done this like a month ago. But we're in the middle of it. But it still applies. Like it hits home. Holidays are coming. November 1st is tomorrow. You're going to start planning for Thanksgiving. Who's coming? When? Who eats this? Who eats that? What, 3 weeks later, you've got Christmas. Where's Christmas going to be? Where do it be? It is stressful. It is stressful for some families. It's definitely stressful with, well, my child wants a certain toy. We don't really have that money for this toy. It's all they've asked for. What are we going to do? We've got some that we'll have to completely do without in the holidays. Perfect time for us to be Christ-like apples to others. So I want us to think about apples. Think about what we're topped with. Think about what's squeezing out of us. Think about the things that we're doing on a daily basis. Again, I am going to cut this short. I'm about ready to lose it and my throat is starting to hurt. So I hope everybody has a great week. I hope everybody tries to stay warm. I haven't looked at the weather forecast. It may warm up. I don't know. But have a great day. If you'll have trick-or-treaters, have fun with that. We don't have any, so we get a relaxing night. So anyway, thanks for listening. So I'll see you all next week.